What if I told you that in some weddings the bride is kidnapped, the groom gets beaten with a fish, and the bride's father spits on her for good luck? Around the world, wedding traditions range from heartwarming to downright bizarre, and what's normal in one culture might seem unbelievable in another. From plate-smashing rituals in Germany to 3-day bathroom bans in Malaysia, these customs will make you rethink what a wedding can look like. Let's explore 20 of the strangest marriage rituals that still exist today. 1. Smashing plates for good luck. Germany. In most places, breaking something at a wedding is a bad omen. A shattered glass or a dropped plate might send guests into a panic. But in Germany, breaking things is not only encouraged, it's an entire wedding tradition. Known as polterabend, this ritual involves wedding guests smashing porcelain plates, cups, and dishes the night before the wedding. The louder and more destructive the event, the better. But here's the catch. The couple has to clean up the mess together. It's meant to symbolize teamwork. If they can handle a pile of broken dishes before marriage, they'll be able to handle any hardships in life together. This tradition has been around for centuries, and while it may seem chaotic, it's deeply rooted in German culture. The belief is that the sound of breaking porcelain wards off evil spirits and brings good luck. In some cases, guests take things to the next level, bringing old toilets, plant pots, or even bathtubs to smash. The idea behind polterabend isn't just about making a mess. It's about preparing the couple for a life where they'll need to work together, no matter what challenges come their way. And if they can survive an evening of sweeping up shattered dishes, their marriage might just stand the test of time. But Germany isn't the only country with a chaotic wedding tradition. In Scotland, things get even messier. Instead of just breaking plates, couples are covered head to toe in filth before their big day. 2. The blackening, Scotland. If you think having cake smashed in your face at a wedding is bad, imagine being doused in molasses, rotten eggs, and even fish guts. That's exactly what happens in Scotland, where a pre-wedding tradition known as the blackening is still practiced in some areas. Before the wedding, the bride and groom are captured by their friends, tied up, and completely covered in the most disgusting mix of substances you can think of. Rotten food, mud, feathers, you name it. They are then paraded around the town, sometimes placed in a wheelbarrow, and made to endure public humiliation. Why would anyone willingly go through this? The tradition is meant to symbolize resilience. The belief is that if the couple can withstand the blackening, they can withstand anything married life throws at them. It's a test of patience, endurance, and humor, all in one messy package. While this tradition is less common today, it still takes place in rural parts of Scotland. Some couples embrace it as a bonding experience, while others prefer to skip the tradition altogether. After all, nobody wants to show up to their wedding day still smelling like fish. But the blackening isn't the only tradition where wedding guests take something from the couple. In Spain, they don't throw food at the groom. They take something from him instead. 3. Cutting the groom's tie, Spain. In Spain, there's a wedding tradition that leaves the groom walking away from his own wedding with a little less than what he arrived with, specifically, his tie. During the reception, the groom's friends will grab him, take his tie, and cut it into small pieces. But they don't stop there. The tiny scraps of tie are then sold to the wedding guests as good luck charms. It's a playful tradition that's meant to symbolize prosperity, with the money collected often going toward the newlyweds as a small financial boost. This tradition is thought to have originated as a way to symbolize generosity and good fortune. In some variations, the same is done with the bride's garter, although this practice is far less common. While the groom might lose his tie in the process, it's all in good fun, and the wedding guests walk away with a small keepsake from the day. Spain's wedding traditions are playful and symbolic, but in Indonesia and Malaysia, one particular ritual is much more intense. Newlyweds aren't just expected to celebrate their love, they have to prove their endurance in a way that sounds almost impossible. 4. No bathroom breaks for 3 days, Indonesia and Malaysia. Imagine this. You've just gotten married, and instead of celebrating, you're locked in a room with your new spouse for 3 days. No phones, no distractions, and most importantly, no bathroom breaks. In the Tidong community of Indonesia and Malaysia, newlyweds must stay in the same room for 72 hours without using the restroom. They are closely watched by their families who make sure they stick to the rule. They are given minimal food and water to help them endure the challenge. The belief behind this practice is that enduring discomfort together will ensure a strong and lasting marriage. If a couple can survive 3 days of physical and mental strain without breaking the rules, they're believed to be ready for the ups and downs of married life. Of course, breaking the rule is seen as bad luck, with some saying it could lead to infidelity, divorce, or even the early death of children. So, while it may sound extreme, couples take it seriously. After surviving 3 days without a bathroom break, everything else in marriage might seem easy in comparison. But if you thought this was tough, wait until you hear about what happens to grooms in South Korea after their wedding. They don't get locked in a room, they get their feet beaten with a fish. 5. Groom's feet beating ceremony. South Korea. Weddings are a time for love and celebration, but in South Korea, the groom doesn't just walk away with a ring, he also gets a few smacks on the soles of his feet. Known as baldari jaligi, this tradition involves the groom's friends capturing him after the wedding ceremony, tying his ankles together, removing his shoes, and then striking his feet with a dried yellow corvina fish. The reasoning behind this bizarre ritual? It's believed to test the groom's strength and resilience before he steps into married life. Some say it also helps improve fertility, which is why the act is often done with a dried fish rather than a stick. While it may sound painful, it's mostly done in good humor with the groom laughing through the process. In some versions, the friends take it a step further by asking the groom trivia questions during the ordeal, ensuring he stays mentally sharp under pressure. The tradition is still practiced in certain parts of South Korea today, though more as a fun initiation ritual rather than a serious wedding requirement. While South Korean grooms endure a few hits to their feet, in Mauritania, brides face an entirely different kind of preparation before their wedding, one that involves extreme weight gain. 6. Fattening up the bride. Mauritania. In many cultures, brides aim to look slim and elegant on their wedding day, but in Mauritania, the opposite is true. Here, a bride's weight is seen as a direct reflection of her husband's wealth and prosperity. The larger she is, the more successful he appears. To achieve this, some girls as young as 7 are sent to fattening camps, where they are force-fed enormous amounts of food, sometimes up to 16,000 calories a day. Foods rich in fat, such as camel's milk and porridge, are given in excess, and the girls are expected to gain significant weight before marriage. Historically, this practice was a sign of prestige and beauty, but in recent years, it has faced growing criticism due to its serious health risks. Many young women suffer from diabetes, heart problems, and high blood pressure due to this forced weight gain. Despite this, the tradition still persists in rural areas of Mauritania, where fuller figures are associated with fertility and wealth. While some Mauritanian brides prepare for marriage by increasing their size, in other cultures, newlyweds must perform a symbolic act to clear their past and step into their future. One such tradition is jumping the broom, a practice that has a complex and meaningful history. 7. Jumping the broom, African and European traditions. At first glance, jumping the broom might seem like a playful act, but this ritual carries deep cultural and historical significance in both African and European traditions. The act of a couple leaping over a broom together symbolizes sweeping away the past and stepping into their new life as husband and wife. This practice is especially significant in African American culture, where it dates back to the time of slavery in the United States. Enslaved people were often forbidden from legally marrying, so jumping the broom became a way to create a symbolic marital union. It was a deeply meaningful gesture, allowing couples to celebrate their commitment despite the restrictions placed upon them. Interestingly, the tradition also existed in Welsh and Roma cultures in Europe, where it was seen as a folk marriage practice. Over time, jumping the broom has been revived in modern weddings, particularly among African American couples who wish to honor their ancestors and cultural heritage. While jumping the broom is a symbolic ritual to start a new life together, in some cultures, marriage preparations include more than just ceremonies. They involve the direct presence of the bride's mother on the couple's honeymoon. 8. Taking your mom on your honeymoon. Certain African tribes. Most newlyweds look forward to their honeymoon as a chance to enjoy their first days as a married couple. away from the eyes of friends and family. But in some African tribes, honeymoons are anything but private. Instead, the bride's mother accompanies the couple to ensure that the marriage gets off to a proper start. The mother-in-law's role is to teach the bride about her new responsibilities and guide her through her first days of married life. She is there to ensure that the union is properly consummated and that the bride knows how to care for her husband. While this might sound incredibly intrusive to outsiders, it is seen as a gesture of support and wisdom in these cultures. Though this practice is becoming less common, it is still observed in some rural communities. In modern versions, the mother might only stay nearby rather than share the same room, providing advice without directly interfering. While some traditions focus on ensuring the success of the marriage, others turn the wedding into a series of fun and playful games. One such tradition is the Swedish custom of allowing guests to kiss the bride or groom whenever one leaves the room. 9. Kissing the bride, but not by the groom. Sweden. In most weddings, the bride and groom are the only ones expected to kiss each other. But in Sweden, wedding guests get in on the action too. There is a playful tradition where if the groom leaves the room, all the male guests rush to the bride to give her a kiss. Likewise, if the bride steps away, all the female guests do the same to the groom. This tradition isn't meant to be taken seriously. It's a lighthearted game that keeps the wedding reception lively and fun. The idea is that while the couple is apart, they are still surrounded by love and affection from their guests. While some might find it strange, it is a widely accepted custom in Sweden, often leading to moments of laughter and surprise. It adds an extra layer of entertainment to the wedding, making it a truly memorable event for both the couple and their guests. While Swedish weddings include playful games in India, another wedding tradition is all about trickery and mischief. 10. Stealing the groom's shoes. India. Weddings in India are lively, colorful, and full of rituals that bring both families together. One of the most playful traditions is called Juta Chupai, which translates to hiding the shoe. It takes place during the wedding ceremony when the groom must remove his shoes before stepping into the sacred mandap, where the wedding rituals take place. As soon as his shoes are off, the bride's sisters and female relatives snatch them away and hide them. Meanwhile, the groom's side tries to protect the shoes or retrieve them. This lighthearted battle continues until the bride's family successfully hides the footwear. The groom is then forced to negotiate with them, offering money in exchange for his shoes. This tradition symbolizes the welcoming of the groom into the bride's family. The playful nature of Juta Chupai ensures that the wedding is not just about rituals and formalities, but also about fun and bonding between both sides. The money received by the bride's sisters is seen as a gift, and in many cases, the negotiations can get quite dramatic. While Indian weddings have fun-filled challenges like shoe stealing, weddings in China add an extra layer of difficulty for the groom before he can even see his bride. 11. Wedding door games. China. A Chinese wedding isn't just about saying vows and exchanging rings. Before the groom can even reach his bride, he must first prove himself worthy by completing a series of wedding door games. These games are planned by the bride's bridesmaids, who challenge the groom and his groomsmen with playful, yet often embarrassing tasks. The challenges can include push-ups, singing love songs, answering tricky questions about the bride, or even eating spicy or sour foods. The more difficult the games, the more fun they are for the guests watching. If the groom struggles, he can offer hongbao, red envelopes filled with money, to convince the bridesmaids to let him pass. However, they usually demand more than one envelope before giving in. The tradition is meant to symbolize the groom's dedication and love for his bride. It shows that he is willing to go through obstacles to prove his devotion. While some modern weddings skip this tradition, many still follow it, ensuring that the groom earns his way into married life. While Chinese weddings involve playful challenges before the ceremony, Cuban weddings have their own unique way of involving guests, through a dance that helps the couple financially. 12. The money dance, Cuba. In many cultures, wedding guests bring gifts for the newlyweds, but in Cuba, guests take a more direct approach by showering the couple with money while dancing with them. This tradition, known as the money dance, is a way to help the couple start their new life with financial support. During the reception, guests line up to dance with the bride or groom. Before dancing, they pin cash onto their wedding attire as a symbolic gift. The more guests who participate, the more money the couple receives. The tradition is not only practical but also ensures that the wedding remains lively, as guests take turns dancing and celebrating. Variations of the money dance exist in other cultures, including Mexico, the Philippines, and some parts of Eastern Europe. In some traditions, the money is collected in a basket instead of being pinned on the couple's clothes. While this tradition is all about giving financial blessings, weddings in Kenya have a very different way of offering blessings to the bride, one that involves an act that might seem unusual to outsiders. 13. Spitting on the bride. Kenya. In many parts of the world, spitting is seen as a sign of disrespect. However, for the Maasai people of Kenya and northern Tanzania, it is a gesture of honor and blessing. At a Maasai wedding, the bride's father spits on her head and chest before she leaves for her husband's home. This act is meant to bring good fortune, protect the bride from bad luck, and ensure a prosperous marriage. Spitting is considered a powerful symbolic action in Maasai culture and is also used in other significant ceremonies such as welcoming newborns into the community. After receiving her father's blessing, the bride does not walk alone to her new home. She is traditionally escorted by other women who guide her and offer advice on marriage. This moment is an important rite of passage, marking the transition from being part of her father's family to becoming part of her husband's household. While the Maasai use spitting as a way to bless the bride, in Romania, weddings come with an entirely different tradition, one that involves the bride disappearing from her own wedding. 14. Bride kidnapping. Romania. In Romania, wedding guests don't just celebrate the bride, they steal her. A long-standing wedding tradition in parts of Eastern Europe, bride kidnapping is a staged event where friends or family members abduct the bride during the wedding reception. Once the bride is taken, the groom must negotiate to get her back. He may have to offer money, drinks, or perform an entertaining act, such as singing a song or dancing in front of the guests. The whole event is meant to be lighthearted and adds an element of fun and excitement to the wedding. The origins of this tradition are unclear, but it has become a wedding custom that continues today, primarily for entertainment. However, it does echo real historical practices of bride kidnapping, which once occurred in different parts of the world as a way to force marriages. Though modern bride kidnappings in Romania are purely for fun, the idea of staged wedding rituals isn't unique to Europe. In India, there is a wedding tradition where a bride must marry something unexpected before marrying her groom. 15. Marrying a tree. India. In most weddings, the bride and groom only have to marry each other. But in India, some brides must first marry a tree. This unusual tradition is followed by women who are believed to be born under an unlucky astrological alignment known as Manglik dosha. It is believed that marrying a Manglik woman could bring bad luck, financial trouble, or even early death for the husband. To remove this curse, the woman is required to marry a tree before marrying her actual husband. The wedding ceremony is conducted just like a normal wedding, with rituals and offerings made to the tree. Once the marriage is complete, the tree is then cut down, symbolizing the removal of bad luck. This tradition is based on ancient astrological beliefs, and while some families still follow it, modern interpretations have made it more of a symbolic act rather than a serious requirement. While many see this as a way to appease traditional beliefs, others view it as an outdated practice that has little relevance today. While this Indian tradition is centered on superstitions and astrology, in some African American and European cultures, an entirely different symbolic act is performed, one that involves jumping over a broom. 16. Jumping the broom. African and European traditions. Jumping the broom is a wedding tradition with deep historical significance, particularly in African American culture. The act of jumping over a broom together symbolizes sweeping away the past and stepping into a new life as a married couple. This tradition dates back to the time of slavery in the United States, when enslaved people were often denied the legal right to marry. Jumping the broom became a powerful way to create a symbolic marital union. Today, many African American couples incorporate this ritual into their weddings as a way to honor their ancestors and keep the tradition alive. Interestingly, similar customs existed in European cultures, particularly among the Welsh and the Roma people. In these societies, jumping the broom was considered a folk marriage ritual, sometimes performed when couples were unable to have a church wedding. Although its historical roots vary, the meaning remains the same. Jumping the broom represents commitment, a fresh start, and unity. While this tradition is now performed with deep respect and historical awareness, some cultures have wedding customs that take a much more playful and chaotic turn, like the bachelor and spinster balls in Australia. 17. Bachelor and spinster balls. Australia. In Australia, rural communities have a unique way for singles to meet and potentially find a future spouse. These events, known as bachelor and spinster balls or B&S balls, are large social gatherings where young unmarried men and women dress up, party, and engage in wild festivities. Originally, these events were designed to help people in remote areas meet potential partners. However, over time, they have become infamous for their rowdy nature, involving excessive drinking, mud wrestling, and all-night partying. While some people do find love at these events, for many, it's simply a chance to let loose and have fun. Despite their reputation, B&S balls continue to be held in various parts of Australia, attracting thousands of attendees. They have become a part of Australian rural culture, blending social tradition with unfiltered revelry. While this event is about creating connections in a fun and chaotic setting, another wedding-related tradition takes a much quieter approach, one that involves eating salty bread in hopes of revealing a future spouse. 18. Salty bread dream ritual. Armenia. In Armenia, young unmarried women have an unusual way of trying to predict their future husbands. Instead of waiting for fate to take its course, they take matters into their own hands by participating in the salty bread dream ritual. This tradition is practiced during the feast of Saint Sarkis, the Armenian equivalent of Saint Valentine. Women are given specially prepared salty bread by a priest and must eat it before going to bed without drinking any water. The belief is that the saltiness will make them dream of their future husband, who will appear in their vision offering them water to quench their thirst. This ritual is deeply rooted in Armenian folklore and is taken seriously by those who practice it. Many believe that if the dream is clear and detailed, it is a strong indication of who they will marry. While this tradition focuses on a hopeful glimpse into the future, some cultures believe that how a couple behaves on their wedding day can determine their entire married life. This belief is particularly strong in Congo, where smiling at a wedding is strictly discouraged. 19. No smiling allowed. Congo. For most people, a wedding is a joyous occasion filled with laughter and celebration. But in Congo, particularly in some communities, the bride and groom are expected to maintain a serious expression throughout the ceremony. Smiling or laughing is seen as a sign that they are not taking their marriage seriously. This tradition is based on the belief that marriage is a lifelong commitment that should be entered into with the utmost respect and solemnity. The couple must remain composed and reserved from the moment the ceremony begins until it ends. While wedding guests may still celebrate and enjoy the event, the couple must refrain from any outward signs of excitement. This creates a stark contrast to the high-energy weddings seen in other parts of the world. While Congolese weddings emphasize seriousness and composure, in China, a wedding tradition takes the opposite approach, encouraging the bride to cry as much as possible before her wedding day. 20. Crying before I do. China. In many cultures, a crying bride might raise concern, but in some parts of China, it is an expected and even celebrated tradition. Known as the crying marriage, this custom requires the bride to start crying at least a month before her wedding. The ritual dates back centuries and is still practiced in certain rural areas, particularly in the Sichuan province. The bride begins crying alone at first, but as the days go on, her mother, grandmother, and female relatives join in. The idea is that these tears are not only an expression of sorrow, but also of gratitude to her family and ancestors. It is believed that a bride who cries extensively before her wedding will bring good fortune to her marriage. In contrast, a bride who does not cry is seen as unlucky or ungrateful. While this tradition is fading in modern times, some families still follow it, seeing it as a way to honor their cultural heritage. With this, we conclude our journey through some of the most bizarre and fascinating wedding rituals from around the world. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.